There is a created world, and my job on this earth is to appreciate and love the created order and the creator who created it for me.
Welcome to Proofread, a podcast to help you read more of what you love and less of what you don't.
Hello and welcome to Proofread. I'm Tyler with you as always, and with me as always here is
Kacy.
Kacy and I are your reading guides through the mountain, the
It's a sea of things to read.
That's right. There's a sea of
How do you
things to read.
pick?
How do we pick? And Proofread is a spotlight, right? It's going to just go through. It's the lighthouse.
It's the
that's
lighthouse
saying,
on the
rocks,
ocean.
Those are rocks.
Don't
Avoid.
beware, but
Right?
or come this way.
Passage is clear. Today, we're actually going to talk about God. Specifically, we are reading a book today by Christopher Beha, Why I Am Not an Atheist, The Confessions of a Skeptical Believer. So Christopher Beha is a writer. He's an editor. He was the longtime editor-in-chief of a popular magazine known as Harper's.
Yes.
So he's a bit of the intellectual kind of guy. Writing, thinking about making it good, making it strong, powerful.
A peer, one of our peers.
One of us.
A colleague. He's one of us. Brainiac.
What we're going to do is try to make sense of this book that is very smart. But here's the premise. So Christopher Beha grew up, was raised Catholic, had a crisis of faith in college, and shortly thereafter left his Catholic faith, but went into the wild seas of atheism and kind of tried everything out. And this book is a record of him thinking through all of the different positions that he held in a process that ultimately led him back to faith.
Yes.
And maybe not the exact faith he had as a child, but back to a theistic worldview is what he would say.
That's a great way to describe it, Tyler.
Yeah. What it came down to for him was ultimately this question of how am I to live? If I step out of this worldview, right, I've taken a step out of this worldview of theism, of belief in God and of an ordered universe, that has a benevolent creator. What does that give me? What options do I have for making sense of my life and finding meaning in life? Okay, so the default mode for the step into atheism is scientific materialism. The physical world is all that exists. This operates on what Charles Taylor would call a subtraction theory, where we're just trying to subtract everything else away, all the fluff and all of the confusion away to find what's really there at its core. And if we can dig down and scrape the dust off, clear the clouds, eventually we'll just find whatever's left, and that is real. We're just subtracting all these other things away. It's there. The unanswered question for scientific materialism, though, is consciousness. What do we do with the human conscience? Like this idea of mind, this consciousness. How do we explain it? If everything is physical, what is this mind that is driving the physical?
Keep going.
Okay. He moves from there to romantic idealism. And this is the idea of the subjective will is the basis of reality. We create the reality around us.
Your perception of things.
Yeah, your perception of things, your perception of reality, your sense of authenticity. The unanswered question here, though, is there is a physical world out there that's outside of my control. If it's all here, how do I make sense of the physical world? And then lastly is agnosticism. He says in its older form, agnosticism is we just can't know about God.
Right.
In its newer form, he suggests it's we don't need to know about God. Questions of ultimate meaning don't feel urgent.
Matter.
Yeah. They're not like, hey, why does that matter? We're living here in Brooklyn. Why does this matter is the example he uses. For this guy, the question of a meaningful life feels urgent. And he says that the therapeutic philosophy to avoid giving the question value is less attractive than the numbing of alcohol or the mindlessness of social media scrolling. I could kind of like convince myself agnostically, like this doesn't matter,
Which he tried doing.
This
was part of his life.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. But he kind of says like that is as numbing to me, just pretending like it doesn't matter why we're here, as if I just drank myself to death or spent my life just scrolling social media, right? Like he just feels there's some monotony and numbingness to that. So this book is this guy's journey through the questions and why he came back ultimately to theism.
Right.
So this is probably the most lead up we've done before we get to reader skip. You guys are like, come on already.
No, I will say that your summary of it was, while detailed, much shorter than
this
him
book
talking about it. And I enjoyed it much more.
Well, let us arrive then at the mysterious now reader skip. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Skip.
Read if you like this kind of thing.
Yeah. or read the postlude when he's talking about himself and what he thinks about it and how he worked through these ideas. I really like that part. I wish it was more memoir.
I was just going to say, I think the problem here is even the tagline suggests the Confessions of a Skeptical Believer is that what this actually is an intellectual history of philosophy and his navigation of it. But what I think you think it's going to be is him navigating
Yes,
it
I wish
and
it was
talking
more
and telling
that.
stories. But it's actually, he's just too heady for that.
But it is a lot of history of philosophy. So if you're kind of in the
Yes,
mood for that,
I was just gonna
yay,
say-
go for it.
And especially if you're a person of faith, or maybe you were a person of faith, you're interested in a take on Western philosophy that is revolving around the question of God.
Yes.
This is a great textbook.
It's wonderful. I wish
Like, as
it
far
were.
as a-
I wish
yeah.
it had been the textbook.
As far
for
as the
my
textbook goes,
class I
this is a
took.
really great way to do it. If you're looking for a memoir of a person's personal and kind of internal struggles, this isn't that. I
Yeah,
mean,
for
you
sure.
have the moment, he has a moment where his twin brother is injured and they're afraid for his life at one point, and that kind of begins his rocky doubts, and then he has cancer himself. It's rooted in this beginning, but the journey he's taking us on is really a journey of his reading. Here's all the reasons I was dissatisfied, which ultimately led me back home to this sense of there is a created world, right? And my job on this earth is to appreciate and love the created order and the creator who created it for me. And a lot of his point, I think, is the most important one that has for engaging anyone in serious ways of differing worldviews is that someone else's worldview is always going to look odd and strange to you from the outside.
Yeah.
Let's try to get into that worldview and see what is the motivations, what gives it meaning for the person in there.
Yeah, and I will say that I do like this guy.
Yeah.
And I'm very interested in what he has to say. It was just too much history of philosophy for me at this point. I just wasn't in the mood. But
Yeah.
let me read some, just to give you
Yeah.
a flavor, okay? This is the postlude, the part that I like, that I think is worth reading. Simply put, this is a spoiler.
Yeah.
The purpose of our existence is to know and love the created order, and through doing so, to know and love God. Love is the cause of the world. In the full Aristotelian sense of the world, it is the efficient cause, the thing that brought the world about, and it is the final cause, the end or purpose for which the world exists. We are physical matter, animated by spirit. That is what makes us whole persons, and any picture that leaves out one or the other is incomplete. I mean, it really does come to that.
Yeah.
And I share this belief, so I appreciate the way he talks about it.
You did the postlude of where he arrives. Here's the prelude of the journey he wants to take us on. And we've already said it's not the memoir that you might have thought. But here's what he says. He says, above all, I want to show you that atheists do indeed have beliefs that they must because we all must. In doing so, I want to shift the conversation to atheists' own ground, subjecting atheist beliefs to some of the scrutiny that atheists apply to religious beliefs. If you are an atheist yourself, perhaps you'll find that your beliefs survive the scrutiny, or even strengthened by it. All the better. My own beliefs have been strengthened by atheist scrutiny, even harsh and sometimes impolite scrutiny. If you are a religious believer, perhaps you will come from reading this book to understand a bit better the sorts of things atheists believe and why it might be reasonable to believe them. Perhaps, paradoxically, my skeptical defensive belief will stir some doubts about your own certainties. This too will be all to the good. As a skeptic, I believe that our doubts are among the most precious things that we have. My own working through has led me to the conclusion that this life is the product of a creative power far greater than myself, that I owe everything to the love of this creator, and that this creator calls me to discharge that debt by lavishing on the rest of his creation the same love he lavishes on me. I hope to make the answer to that question, how am I to live, comprehensible in these pages, but I don't aim to convince anyone that it is the only possible answer. If there is one point I do mean to argue, it is merely that looking the world frankly in the face does not require us to abandon God, that it is possible to be at once a skeptic and a believer both. If you're someone like me, you have this draw to something higher. It can be hard to justify that thing, or hard to say but maybe I'm being weak. Maybe that doesn't make sense.
Maybe I'm imagining it. He thinks he sees an angel when he's younger. Oh, he comes back to that was it an angel? Was it a night terror?
Yeah.
He's always grappling with that.
And there's a part of him that says, there is space for me to believe that maybe I did see an angel. Or there is space for me to say here at least there is a benevolent creator. I'm not a stupid, irrational,
Also, yeah,
illogical person.
You're not just a dummy. It's not just dummies who believe this.
The position that would frame you in that way, I'm going to encounter that and show you how that position is standing on its own assumptions, right?
Yeah.
And those own assumptions lead to certain mysteries, to certain like inexplainable parts. Like,
And there's room for that.
And there's room for that, right? So if you're a believer, you have faith in a higher power, and you engage with a lot of people who don't, and you're kind of like, why don't they? This is a book that would help you.
Another thing I like, the postlude seems to be addressed to his children, which reminds me of a book that I gave you for Christmas, which is by Charles Dickens, The Life of Our Lord. It's that same
which
thing.
I read.
Which I was going to recommend.
Christmas.
Like if you're wanting more of that, that's a whole book of Charles Dickens just really like sharing his testimony of Christ in this same kind of voice, like to his children. But what I like about this, even in the end where he's sort of saying to his kids, like, you're asking me if I believe in Jesus and that he died and came back to life.
Yeah.
And he says, yes, I do. Most of the time I do. Sometimes I wonder about it. But even then, I feel better acting like I believe it's true.
Well, and there's that moment there where he says, like, I believe this as much as I believe that the sun is shining when I feel the warmth of my face outside. One question I did want to ask before we get to content warning or any shelf thing is, you said something that I think is at the heart here is you weren't that interested. You mentioned it to your husband and he was like, ooh, that sounds interesting. And he makes the same point here that like men are predominantly more interested in this question.
I think in my case, my husband had just read a book called The History of Ideas.
Yeah.
And he was like in the mood for this cataloging of ideas through history. And I am personally, as an older woman that is like sick of revisiting what I learned in college.
Which is what this book is.
Which is what this book is. There's nothing wrong with it other than that I'm kind of sick of that.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't as excited to return to it and as he was. But no, I don't know. I think that's interesting that in the book the mysticism is more the women.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like to explore that a little bit better. Their expression of religion or belief, that is gendered, I think. So that's kind of interesting, but I'm not sure. But he's aware of that, putting into the context. He's even acknowledging, yes, I know we just talked about all men. That's
Yeah. And that, I guess, was my question. Did this feel like a male-centric book? Because it did to me. I don't know if Casey's going to have the same response to this because it's all these dudes talking to each other.
It is, but he's aware of it, and that's okay.
and
He can't help it that he's a man. I don't have a problem with a man writing about
Yeah.
philosophy. At least he just acknowledges it. I feel like that's fine. Like, I wish I would have read this for my philosophy one.
No, I agree.
It's
This
great.
would have been a really fun way to do an intro to philosophy.
It is enlightened because it is at least written in 2026.
Yeah, agreed. No content warnings that I can think of.
No content warning. It's just you might not understand it.
Might not understand it, or
it's heady stuff.
Shelf. What do you think, Case?
Shelf. I would say this is the shelf. Faith promoting, but esoteric.
Oh, okay.
It's not an easy faith promotion, but it is faith promoting if you get through it.
I have a literal shelf that is like a lot of stuff from theology school, and it literally has a spot right there on that shelf, which is just kind of like the question of God, the atheist debates. Like, I think that's where this is.
Yeah. I liked reading Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis better than this.
Yeah.
But I like this too. And another book that is more in the same lane that I read just right before we read this was by Francis Collins. It's called The Road to Wisdom on Truth, Science, Faith, and Trust.
Oh, cool.
And I'm recommending that to you right now. I'm recommending that to everyone. It does a similar thing that this book does, but I liked it better. And it was a little easier to read, not as much a history of philosophy. It's engaging with science and things like that. And I would say if you're into this question, thinking about it, that one would be a good one that I would recommend. I like that one better.
Yeah. Okay. Christopher Beha, you've been Proofread. I'm really nailing this maritime metaphor.
Maritime metaphors.
Proofread is a production of BYU Radio and is produced by Jeff Simpson with help from Erica Price, Becca Hurley, and Lisa Valentine Clark. Find us on YouTube at Proofread Podcast for video clips and more. And please follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Thanks for spending your time with us today, and happy reading.